Hello, welcome to today's episode of Talk and Roll with Hawk and the Captain. Today we have, I called Randy a journeyman bass player. Journeyman or gun for hire? Which do you prefer, GeeGee?
I was going to say neither. I guess journeyman would be more appropriate because I've just been doing it for a long time. But
Yeah,
but I'm never Mr. Fill-in session guy. You know what I mean? Like I do a band, and if that band runs its course, I start a new band.
There you go. Well, bassist, Mr. GeeGee Bradley, tell us about yourself there, sir.
Well, first off, how you doing, Paul? Good to see you.
Pretty good, pretty good. Been busy. It's always good to see you. I don't get to see as much as I used to, but it's always a good time to see you. So
yeah, when you asked to do your show, I was like, well, it'd be fun just to catch up.
heck yeah, hell yeah.
So you asked me to introduce myself. For those who don't know, my name's GeeGee. I'm a musician and concert promoter from Dayton. Been doing this a long time.
Yeah. And as of God, today, I think I've known you for 30 years.
Bro, every year I have to ask my mother to make sure which day her birthday is on. You can get right the fuck out of here with that to the day shit, okay?
Yeah, well, the only reason I been a concert or something. Why do you remember the exact date?
Why do you remember?
Why I remember the exact date is because that was Tina and I met on the 13th. That Saturday, we went to Rebo's and your band was playing. And that's when I met you for the first time. So wow. That's the only reason I know how long that I've known you.
He's like secretly stuck. He's got a whole GeeGee book with hearts and.
Well, I used to see him once, twice a month for the longest time, so I did kind of follow where he was at. I want to say you were in Malediction when I met you.
What a terrible name, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, we were kids. They existed before I had anything to do with it. That was like a local metal band in my high school, and they, did like thrash covers. And then I had a crappy, terrible high school punk band that opened for them, and then their bass player went off to college, and they asked me to join. So then it evolved into, which the name wasn't really any better, but it became more of a hardcore band called Drained. So Malediction was their early beginnings when they were doing speed metal covers, and then after I joined, we changed the name to Drained, and it became like an original like metalcore band.
Early metalcore band.
Yeah, like early 90s.
Early 1993. Like I said, the only reason I remember any of that is because Tina keeps me on knowing dates for her. But you have been you've legit been a bass player the entire time I known you. How old were you when you picked up the bass?
I guess junior high was when I first wanted to start playing and got a 6-string guitar and started learning your basic open chords. But I always wanted to play bass. And so after I kind of got like a rudimentary, kind of basic knowledge of guitar, I went to my local music store and hocked it and got a bass. So I've been playing in bands since I was 15 because I remember like those early shows I wasn't old enough to drive.
You've toured all over with some huge bands too.
But again, just longevity, just doing it for a long time. I've had a lot of opportunities to do some cool stuff.
Yeah. And you've been in this scene, the local scene, for a very long time, and you've been in some pretty big bands locally, like Legbone, which is if you're in the Dayton area, yeah, everybody knows Legbone. I remember when they were
like. Do you know the total number of bands you've been an official member of?
No, but off the top of my head, I could rattle them off. So I don't know if I count crappy like high school bands or bands that never released anything or did anything. Bands that actually put out records. My high school hardcore band Drained. My high school alternative rock band Tim with Todd from Shrug. Uh, Sour Belly was kind of like a early 90s pop punk band with Brian, who's in my current band. So that's 3. Joined the Migraines, did that for several years. Started the Jackalopes. The Story Changes. Legbone, Viceroy Kings. So I've jammed and filled in with a few friends' bands, but over the 30 years or whatever that I've been playing music, I guess 8 bands.
That's a pretty good butt count.
Yeah.
Not bad.
And you are always promoting. You are always out there playing. I compare you. You are probably next to me one of the shameless self-promoters of all time. You're out there promoting the shit out of your bands.
As I told my friends, I'm like, inviting you to punk shows is my love language. If we are friends and I give a shit about you, can we curse on your show?
Yeah.
You can say whatever the fuck you want, bro.
I do these, and some you can, some you can't. Yeah. But yeah, anyway, what were we talking about? You've been doing this for a long time.
The love.
The self-promotion.
Oh yeah, that was self-promotion. Inviting my friends to shows is my social life. That's how I see people. That's how, like, as we get older and work, and friends that have kids and whatever, it's like going out and seeing a band is my social life, and that's when I connect with friends over our shared love of music. So yeah, it's not always just business. Ain't none of us getting rich doing this. It's a community.
Oh yeah,
I put my logo on everything. I wear my own T-shirts out in public. Everybody I work with, I'm also, I guess I'm an electrician. Everybody I work with also knows about everything I make, and that was a total accident. And God, that's a weird. Do you have that like double life kind of thing where you also do something else, or is music how you pay the bills?
I mean, there's been periods when music was my job. Like in the Migraines, we toured constantly. In the Story Changes, we toured constantly. But other than those 2 bands, I pretty much always like kept a day job and was just kind of like weekend warrior touring. I've always I started out working in record stores, and I managed record stores for years until the digital age happened and they kind of went the way of the dinosaur.
They're coming back.
And then I just stayed in like retail management, like running stores. I worked for Larry Flint for a few years. That was always interesting to explain. And now I run a chain of game and toy stores.
You were the
game and toy store is pretty good.
Yeah.
That's like, yeah. How do your coworkers react to you being a fucking rock star?
Oh, they think it's cool, but like they don't care. They're like, oh yeah, he plays in a band, but
I get ragged
one
on
of my employees actually bought our record and was has told me they've listened to it, and actually a couple of my employees have said that they've listened to our record, but none of them are really like rock and rollers. They don't really go to a lot of shows. So yeah, in that way, it's kind of a double life. It's like when I'm not here, I do this weird thing where I play loud music on stage with my friends.
You talk about the C. I remember you used to call it CD connection. It was because it was seedy as shit.
If the ownership of that company would have listened to their store managers, they would have stayed in business for years longer, and they might even still be around. But they had their ideas of how they wanted to do things, and they didn't want to listen to their troops on the ground, and that's why they went out of business.
Well, I'm surprised they lasted that long, because I remember talking to one of the other people that worked there. Is the one at one time, I don't know if you were working there at the time, but one of the other managers would give the crackheads down in Troy a list of what movies and CDs to go to Walmart and get.
Well, it wasn't
Like
like
shoplift.
out in the open, but they did have a list of like every week they'd put out the new releases. So like all the sketchy people that were stealing stuff knew like, oh, they pay better for these releases. So like mysteriously it just came out today, but this person has a stack of used copies.
Yep.
So I'm sure it was sketchy as hell, but we made them sign like, they had to put their name and we took their driver's license and took their info. Like if they're stolen, that it's on them, man.
Yep. I still do that to this day. So it's what I deal with, comics and toys and all that stuff. You get them people in there, you're just like, I don't want to buy this, but I'm covering my ass. Sign all this paperwork. There you go. Now the fact that you worked for the Hustler Hollywood. You worked at the one down by the Kings Island, right?
Well, I worked for Flint for a few years. So, okay, after CD Connection went under, I sold my soul to Hot Topic for a few years, and I was a manager for them for a while. They were the closest thing left to a record store, right? As record stores were all dying, like Hot Topic still sold music back then. So then a co-worker there had gone to work for Hustler and kind of recruited me and was like, hey, we're looking for a manager. You should apply. And I was like, oh, that's weird. And yeah, I ended up working for them for like half a decade. And, I was an assistant manager at the big mega store in Monroe. And then I moved to Columbus for a year and ran the store there. Then moved back to run the store in Monroe because that's their number one volume store. And then I got promoted to district manager. So I officed out of Cincinnati, but technically I worked in LA.
Now, during that time period, that you had to be busy. Were you on the road and stuff still at that point?
Oh yeah, that period I was in Lakebone. So we didn't tour hard. We just played like weekends around the Midwest and, maybe go as far as like Tennessee or something. But we weren't touring that hard. But during that same time period, we were getting the venue and the wrestling promotion off the ground. And it was a crazy time. Like I would run the store in Columbus and like I'd go wrestle for some promotion in Columbus on a Sunday. And then I would drive to Dayton because we had just launched Rockstar and we had just started doing every Wednesday. And then I might wrestle somewhere else somewhere that week and then still put in 40 plus hours at my day job.
Where
and
the fuck
still
did pro
play an
wrestler
occasional
come
gig
from?
with my band.
Yeah.
I didn't hear anything about pro wrestler.
Yeah.
You said journeyman basis. They'd always say, "Oh yeah, I'm also."
Oh yeah, he's a professional wrestler too.
I wrestled. Yeah, I fucking tapped out Jerry Lawler.
But when you had Rockstar down, because unfortunately enough, I never got to go to the bar. I always went to the old factory building, and yeah. And the cool part about it is when I've seen bunch of shows down there. You were putting on some really good shows at Rockstar, and I know was Isaac was the booking them, wasn't he?
Some of them, yeah, he worked with us so me, Ben Parker, and Chad Parker started the promotion and the venue. And we had the venue going for about a year. And then Isaac, he'd been a promoter for years with his IK Promotions. Then he kind of partnered with us. So some days he was just an employee of the bar working the door. And then other times he was the one who contracted the show. But between me, him, and Ben, we booked all the concerts. And then for the most part, we let Chad kind of run the wrestling side of it. Because after I'd been in it for a few years, I was just like, wrestlers are crazy. Let Chad bark at them. Let him deal with them, and I'll manage more of the rock show side of things.
that tells you.
Doing shows? Are you still like actively on stage, like on the regular?
With music, yeah. My band now plays regularly. I've been long retired from wrestling. My body was beat up, and I spent a few years actually working in the ring, but it was always the end game was always to be a promoter, and we ran a promotion for a decade. So that kind of played its course after COVID hit. We were shut down for so long, and our landlord ended up selling the building out from under us, and so that was that. But I still play music and still just put out a brand new record last year, and we're just on a new punk rock tribute to early Metallica. It's all punk bands doing Cliff Burton era Metallica tunes, and then
That's my
still
jam,
play
dude.
regularly around
Exactly
Ohio,
my brand.
Indiana, Kentucky.
Yeah.
Cool.
I gotta ask, so what's harder to deal with, musicians or wrestlers?
Gotta be wrestlers. They're all on drugs. They have to be on drugs.
Not
You
all.
ever
The
fucking see
musicians
some
and
of these
drugs are
bumps?
way worse than in music. It's hard
Yeah,
saying 'cause
That's what am I thinking?
with the wrestlers, it's just certain because they're all over the top characters, right? Everybody is themselves on 11, and some people start believing their own bullshit, and you get weird egos involved,
Start
and guys who
kayfabing.
like don't want to do jobs or don't want to do certain things, and it's like it's entertainment, right? Like
Mhm.
it was weird just navigating the politics of that stuff. But in music, overall, you have way more flaky people, way more drunks, way more drug addicts. In wrestling, you just have way more testosterone because even though they're like, it's like the weird hybrid of theater kids and jocks, right? Like they're entertainers, but they're also still athletes, and
Also on TRT.
There's a lot of chest puffing.
Yeah, it's so fun. I just talked with Aaron a couple days ago, and I talked to Matt yesterday, and I haven't talked to them guys in forever. And I was sitting there talking about, like, man, I miss that. I was like, I miss Fridays because every other Friday, you guys had a pay-per-view down there, or once a month.
Yeah, every first Friday.
Yeah. And then I would come down there for like the holiday shows, and like occasionally, when Gary would run a show, I'd run down there. And that's Gary was one of the weirdest. Gary's Gary, but the one day I'm sitting there talking to him, and I'm chit chat with Gary, and Gary goes, "Oh yeah, this is the guitar player for Orgy," and I'm like, "What the fuck is?"
Yeah, he lives in the area. He's a tattoo artist, like north of Cincinnati.
Oh, something you're not ready for. It was like I had a guy get a hold of me the other day, and he goes, "Oh, I bought some stuff off of the guy from Breaking Benjamin." I was like, "Oh," he's like, "Oh yeah, he lives in Dayton." I'm like, "Oh, that's why Breaking Benjamin is always in Ohio. Is because I think their drummer is it lives in Dayton." So, but so I have to ask, because you've stayed in Ohio for most of your life there, so when you're touring, and I've talked to other musicians and wrestlers and stuff like that, they love Ohio because it's cheap to live here and it's centrally located, and you can get everywhere within a relatively short amount of time. I mean, is that you're shaking your head yes, so I'm assuming yes, it's true.
Yeah, it totally is. You can go to the big three. You can go to New York, LA, Chicago, and you're one of a million shows going on. There's a million people trying to get noticed. And in the Midwest, it's easier to be a big fish in a small pond. It's easier to get booked, and networking is easier. Like I said, it's a lot of major cities within a short drive. Like you can be in Chicago in 6 hours. Oh, you can get up early, like get up before the sun comes up and drive and play New York City that night. You know what I mean? Everything east of the Mississippi is a short drive, and so, yeah, between Chicago, Nashville, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, you know what I mean? Indianapolis, there's just so many cities within a short drive that it's easy to route and it's easy to go. And again, if you're not regularly touring and you are just doing weekend warrior kind of stuff, it makes it real easy to, like, oh, we can shoot to, go do a gig in Des Moines and Chicago this weekend, and then next weekend go and do, Louisville and Knoxville. And that, so it's just easier to like tag team cities on weekends because there's a lot of major cities. And you go a few hours, it's a short drive and you play to a completely different audience.
So with touring and everything that you've been doing for, like I said, a very long time, do you have a favorite city to tour? Like the favorite city to play?
Oh, wow. I don't know.
Or venue?
A lot of it's just the experiences. It can vary depending on, a lot of factors, because like who are the bands you're playing with, and sometimes you can be in a city and have a great experience, then come back the next time and it's not so great, depending on the venue and what bands were on the bill and what night of the week it was. I'm always more like surprised by cool things, like who would have thought that like Omaha is such a cool city.
Yeah.
Like I've always had great
What's
times in
going on in
Omaha,
Nebraska?
Nebraska. I've always had good times in Des Moines. No, except for once. There's a running joke. We were I was in a race riot in Iowa once. So
A race riot in Iowa? So
yeah, it was just a barroom brawl, but it was dumb. Band I was in at the time was touring with the Slackers, and they're like a ska reggae band from New York, used to be on Epitaph Records. So that tour, they were doing 2 sets on that tour. And I remembered we were at the merch and like heard them play some song. We're like, oh, they must be about wrapping up. And then like chaos broke out and they stopped playing. And then we went running in to see what was going on. And some skinhead dude punched some girl in the face. And then Q, their old Slacker's old singer, like hopped in the crowd trying to defend and protect this woman. And then suddenly, like, we realized, like, oh, it's a sea of shaved heads and flight jackets, Sieg hailing. And Q was the only man of color in the room. And lots of N-words flying around and lots of, this is Iowa, this ain't New York. And it just got real tense and real ugly. And a big fight breaks out. And we ended up getting a police escort back to our hotel. It was wild.
Some of that punk demographics, bad news bears.
yeah, it's
That hardcore skinhead shit.
And that's weird that the hardcore skinheads would go to.
Yeah, they went to see a reggae band with a black lead singer.
Yeah.
And then when they started being aggressive towards women in the audience and said black lead singer tries to stop it, like suddenly the room turned on him. And it was like, you all paid to see him, and now it was just a wild, weird situation. See, I just saw Vic and Dave from the Slackers last week at a friend's wedding, and we were like talking about the craziness in Des Moines all those years ago. I don't think they've been back since.
Green Room? That movie Green Room was it like a about like, have you ever seen that movie? That's a great movie.
Yeah. Elijah Wood, Patrick
Stewart. Because on tour, man, you run into all kinds of crazy things and you never know. And like, here's something that you'll get a kick out of. You're old enough to remember when like our local straight edge scene was like real rough. And there was like lots of fights at shows and everything. During the Story Changes years, we used to play, kind of, that emo pop punk scene of that time. We used to play with a lot of hardcore bands. And around the country, Dayton had such a reputation that like hardcore kids all over the country would be like, oh, you're from Dayton? And you could see their eyes get big and you could see them back up. And they were immediately afraid of us because they've heard stories that like, oh, Dayton's rough.
Oh, you're all crazy.
But yeah, we just had a real violent, militant faction of straight edge kids in the 90s. And their reputation got around the country in that scene.
It's so I gotta ask this. What is because you just told me that one. What's your craziest road story? Is that the craziest one?
That's a pretty crazy road story.
That's a pretty good one.
Yeah. Probably the best one we've had so far.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I've got to play with a few Ramones, got to play with a few Misfits, got to I've been all over the country. I've been to Canada. I've been to Mexico. I've been to all the lower 48. I've been to every state except Hawaii and Alaska. So, yeah, I've got to do some cool stuff. Got to play Warped Tour. Got to, you know, so, just doing this long enough. You got to see some cool sights.
I got to play my high school talent show. So, all right, buddy.
Oh, man.
La Bamba. That was what I chose to play.
Like I said, you've been all over. You've played everywhere with touring and having bands and stuff like that. So, like, we had our first band that was talking about one of their first gigs. Was it the lead singer pulled a knife on the bass player?
It was the bass. I think it was the bassist pulled a knife on somebody, and they like kicked him out and left him in Detroit. Yeah, and they were like kids though. Like,
yeah. Have you ever had any
fresh out of high school?
Have you ever had a band fall apart while you're on tour?
Oh yeah, well, only once did we actually like leave each other in a separate city. But yeah, when you're living in a van with a couple dudes for weeks on end, and like I always say, keeping a band together is harder than keeping together a relationship, because it's not just one other person, it's 2, 3, 4, however many are in the band, and you have to deal with each other on like a friendly level, on an artistic, creative level, and on like a business level. So it's hard, and especially when you're in a van with each other for 8 hours a day, you start getting on each other's nerves. So it's hard to keep bands together. But yeah, once when I was a kid, literally a teenager, I wasn't in high school. I was fresh out of high school. This really short-lived band that I forgot to mention when I rattled off my band. So Love Lies Bleeding. The band didn't even last a year, so that's why I always forget about it. But it's kind of this like Dead Boys glam punk band. And we only played a handful of shows, and at a show in Detroit, our singer was just nuts. And me and the drummer were like, we've had enough of this guy. His girlfriend was there, so we knew he had a ride home. And we left and drove separate, and that was the end of the band. We just left him in Detroit.
Didn't even talk about it.
Yeah. But evidently Detroit is where you go to abandon band members. What part of Detroit? That's the best part. So,
oh man, remember? Where was it? No, trying to remember which venue it was, that particular show.
If that venue still exists today.
It was.
I wouldn't know it.
We were on tour with Jeff Dahl. I remember that. But yeah, I don't remember. They all blur together. People ask me details about touring and stuff, and I'm like, you always remember the really, really good and the really, really bad, and everything else is kind of a blur.
Yeah, that's what I imagine. Have you ever had like have you ever stood in front of a crowd? Like, what's the biggest crowd you played to?
Well, technically Warped Tour, but when you're a side stage band, you can't really say, all of those tens of thousands of people didn't see us, maybe several hundred people saw us on the side stage we were on. So you can't really claim the tens of thousands at Warped Tour. But the last Woodstock Fest, Tim Buckenroth used to own the Blue Cat in Bell Fountain years ago. He used to do this big metal hardcore fest every summer, Woodstock. And it started out as his birthday party, and it just year after year after year kept getting bigger and bigger. And then he started booking national acts. And the last one he did at the reservation up there, like Ohio Caverns area, the last one was like 10,000 people. And it was nuts to like walk out, and it's a big outdoor thing, and like you walk out. Yeah, I just remember looking out, and just like the people seemed to never end. And I was like, oh wow,
yeah.
Like, this is
That's
all right.
what I was wondering. That's what I was curious about.
Woodstock.
So that was definitely the biggest crowd I played to in one show. And then, other than that, the biggest crowds would be, like getting to play like 1,000-seat venue. Like I got to open for Pennywise at Bogarts, and got to open for the Misfits, and on the tour with the Slackers, people don't realize they would come and play Dayton because they had friends here. Like they had a long history with Dayton, so they'd always like make a pop in Dayton, and people don't realize it was always the smallest show of the tour. They'd maybe played to 200 people at a small bar in Dayton. The rest of the shows were all at least 500 people, and then the El Rey Theater in Los Angeles, they were on Hellcat Records at the time, so playing LA, it was a 1,000-seat venue, sold out. So those shows are always real cool, but
Yeah. With say this. So you've toured with so many people, so many huge bands. I remember you telling me that, you've had the Misfits in your house. And
Fucking awesome. Which Misfits?
well, it's not cool anymore because one of them turned into like a crazy fascist douchebag. But
yeah, dude. A quick side note on him. So I'm a big Misfits fan. I have been since high school, 20 years. I like Danzig era the most, obviously, because you have to. But I also love American Psycho and Famous Monsters. I think they're fucking awesome albums.
I have the South Wind November Coming Fire on my arm.
That's fucking so awesome. I until 2 weeks ago, I made a fucking documentary about the Misfits that I released like a month and a half ago. Until 2 weeks ago, I didn't realize his name was Mikhail Graves, not Michael.
Well,
Graves.
yeah, he spells it all goofy, but yeah, he does pronounce it Michael. His real name is Michael.
Does he say Michael? Is it?
Yes.
Okay, because somebody like corrected me, and then I went and Googled it, and it is spelt that way, and I was like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, his real name's Mike, mind. But he.
Okay, good. Then I'm not wrong.
All artsy fartsy.
All right, cool. We got it.
Yeah,
All right.
Back then, before he went down the crazy conspiracy theory rabbit hole and became like an Alex Jones person, right when Mike and Chud, the drummer, when they left the Misfits, we booked them in Dayton at 1470 West, and a lot of people didn't even know that they had left the band. Like they still had a that Cuts from the Crypt collection was still coming out that Halloween.
They had to fill 3 albums for their contract. That's what they ended up doing. Bruiser's my favorite like Graves era Misfits song.
But yeah,
I love the Misfits.
Big show in Dayton. It was awesome. Ended up playing with them a few times, played with Graves in Columbus, and they came back through Dayton a few times. And then if you remember when he was on the Daily Show and like he came out as like a pro-Bush, pro-war conservative.
That's the last thing I remember seeing, and I don't really know much about what he ended up doing after that. Like what it is that makes him so. Did he?
Yeah, he kept putting out good solo records, and I booked him a few more times because I remember I was struggling with it. I was like, well, I wouldn't want somebody to censor me over my political beliefs or whatever. I'm like, it's not like he's the right-wing version of Propaganda, and he sings about that stuff. Right. So we were like, well, his music and what he does in real life are separate. We'll still keep booking him. And he just kept getting crazier, and he got like really, and he's joined the Proud Boys, and he was in DC for the January 6th. And when shit hit the fan, I guess he pussed out. I guess he was like worried about getting arrested, and so he didn't actually storm the Capitol, but he was there to play a show for the Proud Boys.
I think one of the guys from Iced Earth did.
Yeah, he got busted
and got arrested.
Yep.
God damn it, Graves! What are you doing? It's like it's that the otherworldly reptile vampires or New World Order shit. I love looking in. I don't follow that shit. Like, I don't believe that shit, but I love when people tell me about it. I want to know what it is the fuck you like. What the fuck is QAnon? Tell me about it. I love listening to that, but because it's like it blows my mind that it's got to be like incremental. Like it's got to be a little at a time, like you're saying. Like it does seem like Graves ended up that way, like a little more and more, and as social media and politicians drive the wedge between the two of us.
Jersey suburbs. Mike was from the Jersey suburbs. He was in the military for a hot second. He just he was that old school libertarian. Like he was like kind of a gun guy and kind of conservative, but he smoked weed.
Yeah.
So it's just, whatever. And then, like I said, he just kept going further and further down that track. And
I didn't know that. I mean, anytime I talk about Graves, like I get a comment or two about what a fucking shitlord he is now. But I didn't really know. I didn't know he got like
yep, great singer and
Sandy
great
Hook is.
songwriter. I like his solo records a lot.
Yeah, he's
the title track, he has an album called Return to Earth. The title track was written in my kitchen on Edgar Avenue in Dayton. I remember him and Graham, the bass player he had at the time, sitting in my kitchen with acoustic guitars and a notepad. And he was working on this song, and then that ended up being the title track of his next record.
that's cool. That's such
Yeah,
a
it just
fucking
sucks.
cool
I
story.
played a bunch of shows with that dude. He had stayed at my house. You know what I mean? It just sucks that he went that direction.
I've heard Doyle's like a super nice guy.
Yeah, Doyle is Doyle and Glenn himself are the only Misfits I haven't played with. Like,
Really?
I've played with the Undead, I've played with Graves, I've played with Chud, I've played with Jerry's Misfits.
Mm.
But,
The original Misfits, the shows that they're doing now, the sporadic ones, everybody's telling me they're fucking amazing. That they're like phenomenal. So
I'm sure. Again, I've seen every incarnation of the Misfits. I've seen every incarnation of Danzig, and I saw Danzig and Doyle doing Misfit songs together. I just haven't gone to see the Jerry Doyle Glenn reunion because I'm like, I don't care. I've seen every
Yeah.
every different version of it along
I have
the way.
not, but I was excited that they're still killing it this long after.
Oh yeah,
I had the Misfits booked for a convention I was going to run at one time. I was down to the last where I had to fill out the last of the rider and then give them all the paperwork. And then, like, as it got closer to the convention, they were like, okay, well, we can't do, I don't think they could do Friday. They had to do Saturday. So we had to switch that. Had Mushroom Head was the other band because they were like, yeah, we're out of Cleveland. Fuck it. 3 hours. We're good. So they were like, we can just be there and shoot and then go right back. But it all came down. I had no problem with those guys, but that was the Jerry. Oh God, it was like just Jerry was the only Misfit at pretty much at that time. So I want to say one of the Ramones was running with him at that point.
Oh,
Marky Ramone played drums for him.
And we had them, and then those guys were fine. The people that destroyed the show and basically made me call it off was the local guys. Because, unfortunately, I was going to have to do pay to play. So you were going to, wherever ticket you sold, you got closer to being the opener for the Misfits or Mushroom Head. And we started having these other bands who were like, well, we need to get paid. I'm like, well, then you need to sell tickets. Because that's how we're going to have to do this one. And it started falling apart.
A lot of money on the line to pay Jerry. So
yeah, I got to pay these guys. You got to pay me so I can pay them. And it started falling apart because the local bands, I did no problem with the tour, with the managers and shit of the bigger bands. It's the little bands that caused me to say, nah, I'm done. I don't want to fuck with this. And I walked away from it.
Yeah, at the venue at Turnbuckles, and we used to incentivize bands. Like, we would offer them tickets and offer them a kickback for every ticket that they sold. But the day of the show, they would give us the money for whatever tickets they'd sold and return whatever unsold tickets. So, like, they had no risk, and they could make more money. But yeah, a lot of promoters do the pay to play thing, where if you don't sell all your tickets, you still owe them for the tickets.
See, I know some people. I think he's gone finally. But you bought your tickets at like half off. You sold them, and however many tickets you sold was where you placed on the show. And you'd go to a show, and that shit would start at like 3:00 in the afternoon, and you'd have like 15 opening bands, and you're just like, "What the fuck am I here this early?" The band I want to see isn't going on till like 10:00 at night, and it got ridiculous there for a while.
As a promoter, I get like wanting to stack the local support, and you get a
Yeah.
couple strong local bands to help sell ticket. But once you're at like 8 band, that's a festival.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's
Like,
Ozfest, bro.
Yeah.
You got Ozfest going on in a fucking community center in Ohio.
I remember seeing Powerman 5000 at the Courtyard in Inglewood, and I guarantee you there were 10 bands.
yeah, again, that's a festival. That's
Yeah.
not a show. That's a festival.
And and it was funny because one of the bands was people we knew, and he's like, "I got extra tickets. You want to go for free?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." I went for free, and we were joking around because I was like, "Oh man, it's all fun and games till the Juggalos show up." And then the next band that took the stage was a Juggalo band, and I'm like, "I'm sorry, guys, I did not mean to call that.
You cursed it.
I was like, damn, I screwed this up, man. It's my fault. I apologize. My bad."
Hey man, let me stand up for the Juggalos. I'll tell you, running the venue for years, like the Juggalos were fine, man. Like we never had any problems. We never had fights. They never destroyed shit. They were always really respectful. They, for all of their reputation, they're really big into like their weird little community.
They're good. Like they gather every year.
Yeah.
Cohesively. It's not the is not for them. It's for the music they gather.
Yeah, I don't get it. I'm not a fan of any of those bands. It's not my thing. But yeah, as a promoter, I remember we were all just like, well, Juggalos always show up to support those bands, and we never have any problems. You know what the worst is? Goddamn country concerts.
I bet.
Country concerts are fights on top of fights on top of fights. We always had to like line up extra security because good old boys would get hammered on PBR. And
there are drunk rednecks in every state in this country. Right? It doesn't matter where you go. Country is they're crazy. I think out here, who was it recently? I say recently, but the last decade just like flashed by.
Well, we all lost like a year and a half there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think like I want to say Keith Urban or Garth Brooks, but I don't think that's right. But whatever big country guy is out there right now, like they sold out Heinz Field. I don't know what it's called, or the arena here in Pittsburgh, and they like started a riot in the parking lot, and they were like spilling out into the street and shit. It was like bad news. It shut down a whole part of the city for like a whole day. It was wild.
I made a mistake one year. I went to country concert, and all because I got free tickets. Friend wanted me to go. I was like, all right, I'll go. I didn't want to really go, but I'll go. And I've been to hundreds of concerts, from Parliament Funkadelic to Whitechapel to Synthwave to, whatever. And it was such a clusterfuck at the show. There were people fighting. I'm just sitting there in my lawn chair watching, just kind of hanging out. And literally there's like people like passed out drunk in their vomit, like 2 feet away. I see this really ugly couple trying to go at it in a sleeping bag, middle of the day, like 5 feet away. And you're just like, I'm good. I think I don't want to be here anymore.
That's the magic of heavy metal, man. The metalheads have an etiquette, and they get the let out. They get all that shit out with each other in the pit, and you're looking. If you got a good pit. I don't know how it is. I'm in many shows recently, but from what I understand from personal experience, like in a pit, you're looking out for each other, but like those country guys are just fucking.
Nope.
I graduated high school in a town in Oklahoma. My senior year of high school, in the middle of nowhere, Oklahoma, and my graduating class was like fucking 30 people. Wow. And so those good old boys get down. I know all about it. Fuck.
It's like I said, it's one of the worst. You get more fights, more drunks, more just fucking people falling down drunk puking on people and everything else, and it's like, oh god, this could just go away. Be done. I'd be good. Just 100%.
Yeah, whenever we would do country concerts, it was like we'd all brace ourselves. Like we knew the bar was going to make money. You know what I mean? We knew we'd have good sales, but we also knew we all had to kind of like buck up and grit our teeth, and we're going to have to throw a lot of motherfuckers out because we knew there's going to be a bunch of drunken fights.
But did you have any of the boys down there helping you out as security?
Yeah, a lot of times one hand washes the other. If we were only a concert venue, we would have never survived 10 years. If we were only a wrestling venue, we would have never survived 10 years. But because we had this symbiotic relationship, and then all the young boys, all the wrestlers, the young trainees, and then even some of the boys, like if they weren't booked, if they didn't have a wrestling gig, it was like, hey, you want to come work security at a rock show? And guys like Ganger and whoever would just if they had a night off from the ring, they'd be like, yeah, I'll come and bounce your show.
Ganger
So
perfect.
We have a bunch of wrestlers as security. Nobody's going to start shit.
Ganger is hilarious because he's like 5'4", but he's 5'4" this way and 5'4" that way.
Yeah, he's broader than he is tall.
Yeah, and he was a bouncer by occupation too, wasn't he, at that point?
Yeah. For his day job for years was managing a strip club that's no longer on the Dixie Strip, and then he was working at a
joke like that. That's a good industry to get into.
Which strip bar did he work at?
He managed the living room.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say because it blew away.
Yeah, it was funny because since he was like the bar manager guy running the show, and a lot of wrestlers dated dancers, and it became a thing where it was like the wrestling after parties were always at the living room.
Oh shit, that's where I met Ric Flair back in the day. After WCW house
that's
show.
Where you met Ric Flair.
Oh, he was sitting at the bar drinking. I walked up because my buddy looked at and goes, dude, I think that's Ric Flair. I was like, I don't know, man. He goes, we just left wrestling. It's got to be Ric Flair. And that was when WCW used to do the like Sunday house shows at Hare Arena. And we were just there wasting time after the show was over and then heading out. But we stopped at the living room and he's like, dude, that's Ric Flair. And I'm like, no, it might be one of the dudes that dresses up like him at the show. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to find out. I walked to the restroom and I walked by and I come back. I was like, dude, that is Ric Flair. I was like, hold on, man. I'm going to do something. I walked up and I was like, what are you drinking? I was like, I'm buying this man a drink. He goes, no, you don't buy Ric Flair a drink. Ric Flair buys you a drink. And he goes, what's your buddy over there drinking? And I was like, I don't know, like Miller Lite. He goes, all right, get him a beer. Get this man a drink too. And then we're like drinking on Ric Flair's dollar that day.
And if any of the stories are true, he might have skipped out and not paid the tab anyway.
Probably he could have. No one would have cared because it's Ric Flair. You're just like, oh, we got Ric Flair took off.
Hey, we got fleeced by Ric Flair.
The other one was the time we were at, I think, Diamonds, and we were there, and they were having a WWF house show at the time at Nutter Center, and we kept seeing this big dude getting up and tipping the girls, and I'm like, that looks like the Undertaker. And I knew one of the girls. I'm like, hey, it's like, go see if that's the Undertaker. And she looks at me, she goes, that's the Undertaker. That's 100% the Undertaker. He goes back there and he sits in his little corner. And he would be back here by himself. He'd walk up, tip the girls a 20, go back and sit down. And no one would come up to him because he'd wear the bandana real low and he'd just kind of put the sunglasses, bandana, try to...
Is it like American Badass?
Yeah, American Badass.
Badass.
Yeah. But, yeah, he would do that every time he came through because, Diamonds is what? Like a mile down the road from the Nutter Center? Or it was. I don't know if it's still there or not because I haven't been to a strip bar in 20 years.
In 3 weeks.
I have to think about it. I was like, oh, my whole thing is I keep telling Tina, I was like, I want to go to a strip bar just to see what kind of shitty music they play now. So I end up befriending a girl who dances because she's an actress and a dancer, and she's like, oh, she goes, oh, I dance to like Metallica and Pantera and stuff like that. She goes, oh yeah, but you would not like a strip bar anymore. She goes, it's all hip hop and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, that's not me. That's not me. That and I'm too old for that shit. I don't need to see a girl that's younger than my kids up on stage. I feel like the creepy fuck next door, man. So I got to ask, because I see Doc down there in the corner there. You got dogs. How do your dogs handle you being on tour when you're gone?
Well, I don't travel as much for as long now, and and I have my wife is home taking care of them when I do travel. Yeah, back in the day when I was on the road a lot, I didn't have pets. Because again, you're just you're gone for 6 weeks. What are you gonna do? And then later on, let's see. While I was in the Story Changes, I got a dog, and my parents would take turns watching my dog when I was traveling. But now, like when my wife and I go on vacation, one of our buddies or my sister-in-law or somebody will watch the dogs. But yeah, you can't be gone for 6 to 8 weeks at a time and have animals at home.
My dogs freak out if I'm gone for the weekend. They're waiting at the top of the doors like, where have you been?
Doc thinks I'm dead until I get home.
Yep.
They're so excited. They're so happy that you came home.
My neighbor's dog loves me too, so I always gotta greet him every time I come home. I'm like, "Where's Thor? Where's my buddy?" He's over at the fence. I'm playing with him. I get him. I'm sitting there playing. I go in, open up the door. There's my dog staring at me like, "Mm-hmm. You've been playing with the neighbor dog." They know. I petted the dog. There's a girl who brings her service dog to the gym, and it's a beautiful like lab mix. It's like a hypoallergenic dog and stuff. I was petting it the other day and playing with it, and I come here. He's upstairs. My dog Courage, my little corgi, he comes running up to me, stops, and just stares like, and he walks away from me. And I'm like, "Oh, you're mad at me now? So am I going to be able to sit down and relax today?"
My wife works in vet med, so she always smells like dogs.
Yeah. He would like sniff on you and then look at you all funny.
Yeah. I forgot that she works at the vet's office. Yeah, that's got to be rough on your puppies, man, because they smell them other dogs on the wife. And
they're probably used to it.
Yeah, they're fine now. They're all very spoiled.
You would think we've had these for a few years, and nope. They still get jealous every time you come home smelling like another dog.
See, our dogs will get jealous of each other. Like if you're petting one, the other one like nuzzles their way in, like, hey, I went in on that.
Yep, got the three of them, man. They all three got to get up there at the exact same time.
So, you guys,
we have 3 dogs, a cat, and
I just
turtle.
have Doc right now, but we're coming soon. Dogs are like the whole other half of my identity.
Yep,
only have the one. We can't be having that.
Yeah. We've had 3 for years, and we went down to 2. Then the older one died. Then we still got Abby. And then I was kind of in a bad place because I didn't know if I wanted another dog, because when Junior died, I was really tight with him because he's blind, so he was always with me. He'd walk with me everywhere I went, and he was my puppy. Even though he was an older dog, he had brain damage probably because I think he got poisoned when he was a puppy. And so he was always just my puppy. Even when he was a full-grown adult dog, he acted like a puppy. And when he passed away, I kind of didn't know if I wanted any more dogs. And then Tina was like, well, Abby needs, or Roxy needs a puppy to take care of. And I was like, oh, let's go look. So we went down, we went to all the animal shelters and stuff, and And every time we'd find a dog that we really liked that took to us, it was already taken. And I had one that we went down to my Montgomery County Animal Shelter. I found this dog I fell in love with. I loved it. I was playing with it, petting him, playing with him. And a woman goes, "Oh, I'm sorry." She goes, "He's just been taken, you know." And I'm like, "Oh man, okay." And so I get out of the little pen area and I walk. And pretty soon, a dog got up, unlatched the thing, and was following me, trying to get. I'm like, "No, no!" I'd put him back, and pretty soon I turn around, he'd be right behind me again. And I'm like, "Are you sure this isn't my dog?" It seems to really be my dog at this point. And then the people came in and I handed him off to them. And he wasn't a small dog, but I could still pick him up. Then we got Abby, the Tina's dog, and then the 2 corgis. We got lucky because Lulu was a retired breeder dog that they didn't know what to do with anymore. She's 7 now. And I told him, I was like, "I'll take her in a heartbeat. No problem." Lovable dog, super lovable. And then Courage was, my mom happened to be at the animal shelter working as a volunteer. And this woman surrendered Courage because he's like a runner. He takes off. He gets into everything. He poops on the floor. He's not a good dog. And I was like, "All right, I'll take him," because his name's Courage, and that's Courage the third, because he's the 3rd Courage we've had. And he had a couple accidents when we first got him. That's it. He never tries to run, and we found out all he needed was somebody to love him. And he's a super
there's no
lovable.
such thing as a bad dog. If you have a bad dog, that dog had a bad person.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. So yep, that's where
Dude, I was Mac. My previous pet was my whole life. We lost him in January. It fucked me real bad. And so all year I've been like upset with myself that I didn't film like his reaction to me coming home. And today I was like scrolling through like my Google photos for whatever reason, just looking, because it goes back to like 2014. And there's just like innocuous video that I've never clicked on since I took it, apparently, because it's just like a shot of I found out my front door. So I clicked on it, and it was, oh, I'm gonna cry. It was me filming Mac's reaction to me getting home, and I thought that happened to me today. I almost fell to the ground. I was crying all afternoon over it. It was awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome that you didn't know and that you do have that little video.
I once I saw it, I vaguely recalled taking it, but I had no clue. I was genuinely, one of the biggest things that I was upset about was that I didn't do that. And yeah, that was kind of serendipitous or whatever.
Yeah, I had a collie shepherd mutt that was my girl, Jack the girl. Jack was with me for over a decade. Moved to Columbus and back with me. Was with me through different jobs, relationships, bands, and then when my wife and I started dating, and then we ended up moving in together, and her pit bull Watson moved in with us, and we Brady bunched our dogs. And Jack and Watson were like best friends. And when Jack passed, we were just like, "Ah, man, Watson needs a homie. Like, he needs like somebody." And I was in the same thing. I was like, Jack was my girl. She was my best friend for a decade. You know, she was my ride or die. So I was just like, I don't know. And I was like, yeah, Watson needs a playmate. He needs somebody with him when we're gone. And then we went to the shelter and found our dude Wally. He's this black lab mutt who's just awesome. And then we had just planned on having the 2. And then one day my wife found, we call her a chupacabra, craziest looking dog, some kind of pit bull, shepherd, greyhound mutt. And she's the strangest looking thing. And she brought her home with the idea we were just going to, like foster. We were just going to try to like find this dog a home. And like the first night, her and Wally buddied up, and we're like, "Oh, I guess we have 3 dogs now."
That's what
awesome.
happens, man.
That's why we named Doc, because I had the same thing. I mean, Mac, he would have been 10 this month. But we named Doc because part of adopting him was healing from losing Mac. And now I think in my dedication to, because I got him from a shelter. We're not sure what happened, but somebody dumped him. We know that because he was already chipped, but they had wiped all their information off the chip before they dumped him. And when he first got here, everything was new to him. So he had never been, I don't think he'd never been a house dog. He's very timid and scared of things. He's a pit bull, by the way, but not, you wouldn't tell other than looking at him. But I think in my dedication to that, I think he needs another dog to show him that everything's not so scary, and not all, because when other dogs are walking down the street or the neighbors' dogs come out, he doesn't bark at anything but us. He'll bark at me, which is why I have to keep muting in the middle of the show. He'll bark at me when he wants something, but that's the only time he barks at anything. He doesn't like pull and try and get to anybody. He doesn't bark at anyone unless like he thinks you're coming to meet him and you stop too early. So like he's fantastic, and I think another dog is going to be pretty magical for him. So
yeah,
every show we at least 15 minutes we talk about dogs. Every show we've done.
Yeah, that's the way it should be.
Yeah,
we as humans don't deserve dogs. I'm just glad we got them.
Yeah, I mean, when Junior was my buddy. Like I said, I've had him since birth. We had the issues. He ended up going blind when he got older, and I was a CNI person. So I would walk, and he'd walk between my legs, and everybody's like, "You got a blind dog that you take with you?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, I'm a CNI person. I take him wherever I go.
That's awesome.
Yep. So
awesome.
I guess we got to get back to talking music here.
You can always edit it.
Yeah. So where do you see, because this one's usually for Hawk Down Air, where do you see yourself with the current Viceroy Kings a year
from now?
Yeah.
Oh, where do I see us a year from now? Where do I see the band a year from now?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're all old dudes, so like, we have no delusions of grandeur or anything. But like a year from now, we'll have at least one more record out. There's going to be a NoFX tribute album coming out next year that we're on. Hopefully, we're going to have another record coming out by the end of the year. But yeah, just still writing, still performing around the Midwest, and still putting out records. Like we've had a good track record of every year we've released something. So every year we've either put out a new EP or been on a comp or something, and just trying to keep that going. We're just keep putting music out into the world. Like I was on another friend's podcast last week, and I said, the whole reason I play music is because I want to put music out into the world that I want to hear. Like I want to make the records that I want to hear. It's like that's why I don't play in a cover band. That's why I don't play. It's like I want to write and create and leave something that will outlive me.
That's awesome. How long have you been with your current band?
5 years, 6 years. The pandemic screwed everything up, so it gets blurry. So yeah, I guess almost exactly 6 years. Of course, we lost a year and a half in the middle of that, but yeah, we started the band. I left Legbone in 2017, and then shortly after, we started the Viceroy Kings. We put out our first 7-inch, and then we put out what was going to be our second 7-inch, and the plague hit. So we put. What was that?
I think I remember your first show. Didn't you play with? I want to say Veronica Grimm.
Yeah, our first unannounced show that we probably shouldn't have played. We always joke like we were way too loud. We were, I do my punk rock cover band thing. The GeeGee's Punk Rock All Stars is like me and a revolving cast of friends. Most recently, it's been Ron from DOS and Ryan, who used to be in the Knuckles, and he was recently in DOS. But yeah, it's me and buddies doing like punk rock classics. And it's always like whenever one of my friends' bands is coming through on tour and I need an opener and my band's not available, like I'll show up and play some Ramones songs or something. But so we had this birthday. It was my birthday. It was Ron from DOS, who was also playing with me in the All Stars. It was his birthday. It was Eric Purtle from Dark Backwards' birthday. It was all right around the same time. So we did this big punk rock birthday show, and Veronica's band was playing. And literally, like the weeks leading up to it was when the Viceroy Kings formed. So we had got together, played a few times, worked up a couple songs. And I was like, well, I'm doing this show. We should hop up and do a couple songs and like introduce the new band. And then a couple months later, that December, we played our first real official show.
Yeah, because that was a out of nowhere. Because I remember you calling me up and you were or message like, "Hey, I've got a show. You want to come to it?" And I'm like, "What day?" It's like Saturday. I'm like, yeah, we'll be there. We were there whatever day it was, and we showed up, and that was a fun night, man. That was a blast. But before I forget, I got to ask you this. You were talking about juggalos and stuff. We were talking about that. I talked to a guy who worked at Hair Arena and worked for an ICP show as custodian. He was cleanup. He goes, dude, there was 3 inches of Fago on the Hair Arena.
Oh, yeah, dude, those Fago drinking motherfuckers. Yeah.
It's like, and I'm sitting there because I remember you guys doing some Juggalo shows. I'm like,
we actually had ICP.
Rockstar was sticky.
Yeah, when ICP played, they actually shipped in pallets of Fago. So a truck pulls up before the gig, drops off pallets of, they're 3 liters because they're Fago. And yeah, there's inches of Fago on the floor at the end of the night. But they're so pro, man. Like, it was in the contract. The next day, they had a cleaning crew come in and clean our floors.
Damn.
Again, why I can't hate on ICP, man, because like Violent
They
J
probably
was super
have.
cool to us.
No. They seem cool. I'd sit down and talk to like Violent J or any other. Like they seem like super cool dudes, and their followers seem like fanatical, but who isn't? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like everybody said they're fucking crazies, but they all seem super nice. It's just the music. I don't get. I don't understand.
Their road crew, right? They'll take the big 2 liters, 3 liters, whatever, and one of the things they'll do is take the cap off, stick their thumb in it, and then shake it up, and then let it go, and it launches off of their thumb and fires across the crowd. We had a Fago bottle in our light rig in our ceiling for years after ICP played there, and it was always like, "Hey, look up! There's our little, there's our little
ICP
memorial."
Fago memorial.
One of my favorite, 2 of my favorite shows I got to see down there was Battlecross and Necrogoblicon. Those guys were fucking great. And then the Jericho show. But the Jericho,
Fozzy,
the Fozzy show was funny because I'm not gonna lie, John Murray was trying his ass off to get on stage.
John Murray, I don't think has any memory of this.
No.
We tease him about it all the time. Like, remember that time you got drunk and almost fought Chris Jericho?
He
was hammered.
we were laughing about. I was laughing about this with Aaron. I was like, man, I remember the night I was listening to doing dishes late night because I'm a night owl, and I'm sitting there doing dishes. It's like, I don't know, 2 a.m, and I'm listening to Cornette's podcast, and it was the night when he talked about the Outlaw Mud Show with the fat guy, and I'm like, let's talk about John Murray. I was there.
John Murray Pro. John Murray Pro.
Yes. And it's like,
Jim Cornette's favorite wrestler.
I'm trying to get him on the show. I'm talking to
Chris Jericho. I'll talk to Chris
Bruce
Jericho
now, so we'll get John on too. So, but on the other show, not the rock show, the just a regular interview show. So I had to bring you on there so we can talk about wrestling more on the regular show.
There you go. Yeah, you and all your multiple podcasts.
Yeah. I'm all over. Do you got any upcoming events with the Vice Lord Kings coming up so people?
Yeah. Now this time of year, we usually start slowing down because the holidays are bonkers, and when the weather starts getting crappy, who wants to be traveling in snow? So this fourth quarter, we usually slow down, but this year we're actually we have a really sweet Halloween show, really sweet Christmas show. And in between, we're doing a hometown show in Dayton at Blind Bob's with the Coffin Cats. So, what is it? Saturday, October 28th, we'll be at Leo's at the Slice in Middletown. And that's one of those festival type shows we were talking about earlier. There's a bunch of bands. It starts at like 5 in the afternoon. So, Halloween show, Middletown, October 28th. Saturday, December 9th, with the Coffin Cats at Blind Bob's in Dayton. And then Saturday, December 23rd, Saturday before Christmas, the Super Satan Show Christmas party at Southgate House Revive. That's Cincy area, Newport, Kentucky.
You guys got socials or anywhere that people can find you?
Oh, yeah. Facebook is probably the most active because we're old dudes and everybody's on Facebook. But we do have Instagram too, and then Bandcamp and YouTube and wherever you stream music, you can find our album.
Yeah,
iTunes, Spotify, whatever.
Yeah, I think one of the last times I ain't seen the Coffin Cats in forever, and I think I saw them down at Rockstar. Maybe the last time I saw them.
Yeah, we had them at the old 3rd Street venue, and we had them at the Waterville Elite venue.
It's been a long time. It feels like it's been forever, but it doesn't. It's what did I say? It feels like it's been, but it's only been.
I always call it the blip.
The blip, yeah.
It's the Marvel Thanos snap, man. We all just lost 2 years of our lives.
Just gone. It is nice to see shit going back to normal, but I know going from 21 to 31. I'm about to be 33 in January. It just that decade that's when you as a human adult, your time perspective starts to shift. Whereas if you go back and think about high school to a freshman year to senior year, just 4 years, that's nothing. That's nothing. I couldn't tell you anything between 2016 and 2020. That was like that. But from 2005 to 2009 felt like forever. And so losing, I didn't get locked. I was fortunate enough to continue working. So I didn't get locked down or anything. I didn't catch the bug. And
I knock on wood, I never got it. But our whole world changed, man. My wife and I owned a venue, and so we lost the venue. I had a day job that lost that. It never came back. My wife lost her day job. It never came back. So we were literally didn't leave the house for 14 months, and with my band, our keyboardist was over 60. Our singer's wife had some health issues and was immunocompromised. So when all that stuff was going on, everything stopped. The band stopped, my day job stopped, the nightclub I owned stopped, and then, Biden cut off unemployment early, and everybody's get vaccinated and go back to work. And we were all right, well, what's next? And that's how I ended up working for the toy store. Because it's oh, what's the next chapter? What am I going to do next? And I'd done retail management in the past. And I'd always joke that I couldn't be Al Bundy. I couldn't sell women's shoes. I couldn't do something if I hated it. I wouldn't be a good salesman if I didn't believe in the product. And then I stumbled upon a game and toy store, and I was oh, that sounds fun.
It does take a special resolve to deal with people in retail. I dealt with people in food industry, restaurants, and I was a cook. So, I didn't have to be face to face with customers, but I have been face to face with customers, and it's.
I will tell you this: one of the nicest things about being me in retail is now I own the place.
Yeah, you're the boss.
I can tell people to fuck off.
Yeah.
And I have, and it's so nice not having to deal with, because I was a manager at Hollywood Video, and a hotel and stuff. So you had to be super nice, even when you wanted to like just grab them and toss them out into the street. Even though I pushed it so many times, and how it took me forever to get fired from that job is beyond me.
Paul is what Kevin Smith would have been if Clerks didn't work out.
Yeah.
Like if Kevin Smith put out Clerks and it flopped, he would be Paul.
Hey, that's one of the reasons why I lost a shit ton of weight one time. I'm legit standing in the old Piccolo Theater, and I had a trench coat on, and I always wear a fucking hat. And this guy walks by, and he goes, "Dude, it's Silent Bob, the fat guy." And I went, "Oh, man." Looked down, and that was when I had gotten chubby working at the hotel. So I cut out soda and shit. And I dropped like 30 pounds. Like
that's how I did it. I quit drinking beer and soda, and then fell off.
Ironically enough, I was sitting there. I weighed myself not too long ago for the first time in forever, and I was closing in on 250 at one point because I was getting lazy. I just at the shop, you don't get active and stuff. And then I started going to the gym, eating right. Then now I'm 167. So
Congrats.
I'm a shit ton of weight. I actually had people on my other shows like email me, make sure I was okay. So like you lost a lot.
Dude, everybody, I lost 100 pounds. I was pushing 300.
Oh wow! Congrats.
I lost 100 pounds. I didn't work for it. I honestly. I didn't go fucking to the gym and have like a weight loss journey. I cut out some stuff. I stopped drinking because I didn't like it anymore. Like being hungover, I couldn't handle it. And then I stopped drinking soda, which I used to drink a lot of soda. And then I kind of just switched up the way that I ate. Basically, I just eat once a day. And so I crash dieted my way to it. But everybody where I work thought I was on heroin. So but they would only discuss it amongst themselves for years. And I found out that they all thought I was on drugs because I had lost 100 pounds, and it only took like a year and a half for all of that to fall off. So they were like, "This kid's on drugs," but he doesn't act like he's on drugs. But look at how skinny he is. I did end up getting at the very end of that, like as I got to this weight that I have been for the last 6 years now. I got salmonella, which like dehydrated. It fucked me up. So I ended up getting like dangerously low because I got sick as fuck. So I ended up losing like 30 pounds. I was down into the 150s. I looked like death. So I guess I kind of get it, but I bounced back pretty quick.
Yeah. But,
Going all Christian Bale method acting there, getting on.
Yeah, I was going machinist for sure, bro. It looked rough.
So I gotta ask you, GeeGee, would you ever? I know it's probably a sort of subject with the way everything is. Would you ever open another venue?
Absolutely, with a lot of right circumstances. It's a lot of work. It's for very little money. Chad and I and Ben, all of us kept day jobs through the whole time we ran the venue, because if we would have paid ourselves the salary that we should have, we probably wouldn't have survived. So like we made very little money doing the venue, but we were able to be self-supportive. We were able to keep it going and pay the bills every month, and we survived for a decade, and a once-a-century plague shut us down. Yeah. But if we got some like financial backing and the right thing, and there's just so many factors, and you gotta have, especially doing a venue, you gotta have certain parking. You have to be able to fit so many people, depending on what you're doing. Like when we were doing wrestling, you had to take into consideration the height of the ceiling, and like there's, depending on how many people you're going to put in, it has to have a certain number of restrooms. So there's just like so many factors but under a lot of right circumstances, sure. Because I love music, and I love, I loved being able to help young bands develop for 10 years, being able to bring cool touring acts to Dayton for 10 years. Like I loved running the venue, but the plague hit, and financially it got over our heads. So Maybe someday.
And on my last note, what do you got to say to inspiring musicians today?
Don't.
Don't do it. Give up
That
now.
was a Legbone's album. The Legbone album I'm on is called "It Leads to Poverty," because I was working for Hot Topic at the time. They had like a company newsletter sort of shit, and they would like do features on bands, and they interviewed me for it. And the last question of the interview was like that, like, what advice would you give to young musicians? And I was like, don't stay in school, do anything else. Being in a band leads to poverty. And the guys in Legbone thought that was so funny that we named the album "It Leads to Poverty."
Nice.
The other guys from Legbone worked at the same factory I did, but not at the same time in Sydney. They worked at Sinveo. And it was funny because I'm there one day and I'm noticing, I'm like, why are there Legbone stickers everywhere in this place? And then my buddy Bone goes, oh yeah, dude, the dudes from Legbone used to work here. And I'm like, that explains a lot. They would
they were originally from Sydney.
Yep.
And then Mitch and Kyle both went to school in Columbus for a while, and Kevin, the original drummer, left and then came back, and they had Jake, and then we had Riley. But yeah, the original lineup, and still to this day, the same singer and guitarist. Those guys were originally from Sydney.
Yep, that's so funny. But
my final note, I want to point out to the viewers, the Thanos gauntlet sitting behind Paul with the metal fist was my idea. Okay.
Yep.
Leave it there.
I had it sitting there, and then Vince was over there playing with it, so I had to.
So awesome.
So I can do this though. This is not how Magneto should look. But yeah, I gotta figure out where I'm gonna put that. I'm running out of room for helmets. Yeah, you've never seen it down here, GeeGee. That whole wall over there is stormtroopers, essentially. So
it's an entire wall. He was showing me after the show last week or Sunday or whenever. It was wild.
I'm a huge fucking dork, and I gotta say this, man, GeeGee. I've been happy to not sponsor you, but be behind you in your music. And I can't always get to all your shows. I try when I can. You've kicked ass in bands since, like I said, since as long as I can remember knowing you. And literally, I met you in the music scene because of my wife. And we would talk when I'd run into you at CD Connection and then wrestling and stuff like that. And it's cool to see you still out there. You're kicking ass. You're enjoying it. You don't have to be. It's not a job to you. You seem you're legitimately happy. You're pushing that band. You are. I think what older. I don't want to make it sound too like we're too old here. There's
we're
a lot
ancient. It's all right.
Yeah, there's a lot of bands out there in the local scene that still think that this is going to be the day they have their big break. This is going to be the day they have their big break. This is the day they're going to have their big break. And you guys go out, you have fun, you enjoy what you do. You take it seriously enough, but you also know that those days are, a good chance they're behind you. I mean, it can still happen. But,
Yeah. All of my heroes died poor. You know what I mean? Like, I remember growing up as a kid, like, my parents saying, like, well, what are you going to do if music doesn't pan out? And I'm like, do you even pay attention to the music I play? I'm like, it's not really like mainstream pop music. I don't really, my goal was just to be able to make a living, just to be able to play music. And, and now here I am in my late 40s, still playing music. It's just something I love. It's something that I'll always do. I'll be that old guy at an open mic somewhere. I'll play until I just physically can't anymore.
The internet has allowed for niche audience acquisition, so you don't have to be the mainstream, and you don't have to appeal or be shown to everyone. Like, you get a community built around this cool thing you're making, and that's what happens when you build a cool thing. Cool people show up to support it. You can support yourself that way, so you don't have to have your big break anymore. Like, you're not chained to record labels or basically any of the old school way the music industry used to work. It's all, independent guys survive just fine. And I'm not one to think that age fucking matters when it comes to that shit either. So,
and guys even older than me that are still out touring and still, there's two big things that Viceroy Kings have been able to be a part of that have like opened us up to audiences outside of Ohio. Sal from Electric Frankenstein did this really cool comp series 20 years ago called A Fistful of Rock and Roll. Kerrang, the British magazine, Kerrang called it the 300 most important bands in rock and roll. But it was, at that time, it was like the Dwarves, D-Generation, the Donnas. It was all like real like rock and roll stuff. Big guitar rock and roll. And so 20 years later, Sal did another, and now he's in the middle of releasing a series called A Fistful More of Rock and Roll. And again, it's like an 18 volume series and bands from all over the planet. So it's like there's bands from Brazil and bands from Japan and bands from, all over Europe and all of Canada, Mexico. So it's just a cool thing for all of these kind of like underground rock and roll bands to like network and hook up and trade shows. And then my buddy Mike, who I've known for years, runs a label called Coffin Curse Records, and they put out our album. And we've done some really cool compilations and things on Coffin Curse. So between the Fistful of Rock and Roll family and the Coffin Curse family, like, those are like cool things that even as an old man, I'm still getting to like get records out.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I have to get a hold of you because I'm missing an album. I think it's the Viceroy King's first EP. And I loaned it to somebody and I never got it back. So
the first 7-inch?
Yeah. If you have any, I need to get one off of you.
Yeah, that one we still have because we did a big pressing. Our second 7-inch, we did a limited run, and so those are gone. But unless you're just a vinyl collector and you want the record, because I love vinyl, just something about the sound of a record. The versions that are on our CD, I think, are better.
Yeah, I've turned into a massive vinyl guy, especially over COVID, because I went and dug out my old collection. Then I started finding new stuff, and then I'm like, damn it, this is a new thing for me again. Shit.
We're on that punk tribute to early Metallica, and the CD, cassette, and digital download is out. And sometime around Halloween, the vinyl is going to drop, and I'm like real excited for the 12-inch of that.
Oh, yeah, I need to get that too. So, what song do you play?
We do Trapped Under Ice. We do a very Motorhead-esque rendition of it. It's cool listening to that comp because everybody does kind of like deconstructionist covers, right? So it's all punk bands doing early Metallica. So it's like reverse engineering Garage Days. So
yeah,
it's
those are
cool
the most
everybody's
punk-inspired
interpretations
albums too. So like you're fucking, it probably works out really well.
Oh yeah, those guys were all, they came off.
They were half new wave of British heavy metal, half punk rock. That was thrash metal.
Exactly, and that's why this comp is so cool. Reckless Threat from Tennessee do an awesome, like, ripping punk rock version of Motor Breath. Grave Robber, a horror punk band from Indiana, do Escape. And they're so like big vocal, that big Misfits sing-songy chorus kind of stuff. So Escape, if you remember the hook,
Out for my own, out to be free.
so now a big booming Danzig sounding horror punk band doing
That
that is
sounds
fucking
like-
great.
That sounds right in my alley. Fuck yeah.
Yeah, it's called Garage Years, a punk tribute to early Metallica, and it's all punk rock bands doing like punk rock versions of Metallica songs. So it's a great comp.
Oh yeah, nice. Well, sir, we're gonna let you go so you can get ready to get up, and I don't know what time
Go
you go to
manage a
bed,
toy
but
store.
Yeah, go.
Yeah, I actually have the day off tomorrow. I've had a crazy week. We just relocated my store, so
Yeah.
so doing all of that, like I put in 2 crazy long weeks, and my boss was like, "Hey, take an extra day off next week." I was like, "Don't have to tell me twice."
Sure.
I don't know. My boss is an asshole. He doesn't let me have days off.
I can't wait till my own boss.
Yeah, it's I'm not gonna lie. It's one of the best things, and can be one of the worst things simultaneously. Being your own boss, so it's because the last.
Oh yeah, running the venue, man. Like, at my store, I'm the boss. I'm the area manager, but we have like our corporate home office in Texas. So I have support, and I have people at the home office I can call for things and whatever. Yeah, the venue, it was just us. So if something happened, we had to figure it out.
Yep. So, all right, sir. Well, you have yourself a good night. Tell Courtney I said hey, and hopefully we'll get to see you at one of the shows coming up if time, time permitting, because I got my.
Yeah, I don't expect you guys to drive all the way to Cincy, but yeah, Dayton, December 9th with the Coffin Cats, and Middletown,
Bob's,
October
30
23rd.
minutes away. So yeah, I like Blind Bob's. It's a nice little joint. So, but
Coffin Cats rips. It's going to be a good show.
like I said, I seen them forever ago, and I couldn't tell you. Like I said, it was at the old 3rd Street was when I saw them over there at Rockstar. So that tells you how long ago that was. So,
Right, well, thanks for having me, man. It was good talking to you, and I'm excited to see this edited down. I feel like we rambled about dogs and other things, but
sometimes even because the only way you can get the full story and the flow is I have to leave the weird shit in. If not, the full thing does not make sense.
People love it. People, trust me.
Yeah,
the conversational thing. This one was good. Probably one of our best so far.
Oh yeah, and
awesome.
Take care, sir.
Yeah, maybe someday I'll do your other show and we'll talk wrestling.
Yeah, because like I said, I'm currently talking to a bunch of the guys, and I'd like to have all of at the end, and maybe do something at the very, very end. So, but yeah, it's kind of nice getting caught up with everybody since I don't get to see you guys. It's now we can Zoom.
That's just an excuse. Hey, come be on my podcast.
Yeah, be on my podcast, man. So, all right, man. Take care, and I will talk to you soon.